I really wish that we were all registered as independents because it's so felt that people are so biased and feeling like you can feel that people would feel extreme shame if they were to go against their side, the side that their parents maybe voted for and the side that they were raised in. And it just shows such a stunted mind. Like, it's okay, guys, to at any point say, hey, this is not what I thought that I was voting for. This is not what I thought that I was supporting. Be very aware and listen very closely to people who are enabling is abuse, and justifying and making excuses. I feel very, very grateful to be an independent and to really be looking at all of this through a neutral lens. And I'm also very grateful that I have friends and family who are open to having conversations that have different views and not get all up in arms and throwing shame and abuse, but to try to connect and try to understand each other. I talked to a friend today, very grateful that they were able to give me some insight. I'm also very, very grateful for pattern recognition. So I want to share some things that I'm picking up on with you guys from an energetic standpoint and pattern recognition standpoint, not me wanting approval from any different side or any kind of bias, just integrity. So as someone that came from a low effort family system, remember, low effort means low care. So notice when people are giving excuses instead of putting in effort to understand others, to see different sides, and to really come into empathy, trying to understand and put themselves in your shoes, why you might be afraid, instead of just saying like, well, they should have just listened, they should just comply. When people are just throwing out these excuses, I'm noticing a pattern that it's all the same identical sentences. And I just see Trump standing behind these people with his hand coming through their chest and just puppeting them. And these are not stupid people. A lot of them are people who are engulfed in fear. And remember, fear is an illusion. Fear is a delusion reality. Remember, triggers are the guides. So when you feel fear, it's important to say, why is this here? Why is this shame here? What is it trying to show me? What is this guilt showing me? Instead of, I'm talking about when people live full time in this, that's when they start to hide behind things. So notice when people are living in a state of fear and they're not having any kind of critical thinking for themselves. They're just kind of zombies and following along. So it's important when we have these low frequency feelings and emotions come to the surface, it's very important to feel them all the way through, to acknowledge why fear it might be here. And it totally makes sense. There are people being murdered and executed in the street. So we can understand why it's here. But when we stay in a state of fear, then we will find ourselves living in delusion, making decisions from a delusion space. So, for example, I used to be a people pleaser. I lived in full delusion because I was so afraid of being rejected and abandoned. I was trying to extract your approval through manipulative, overgiving, oversharing, people pleasing. So you can ask yourself, if someone is giving you excuses and regurgitating things from Fox News, which we know is just brainwash station. The news is a brainwash station. So if you're regurgitating things from the news, it's not going to be reality. So something that's helpful for me is to, when I'm getting these excuses and justifications, enabling. Say you have a father that beats the shit out of you and you have an enabling mother who's like, well, just listen to your father, Henry. That mother is also abusive because she's supporting the abuse to continue. So if you hear people that are just regurgitating the things that they're hearing from Fox News, they are assistants to the abuse, but that's not what their intention necessarily is, and probably most likely is not. But you can ask yourself, hey, this family member, this coworker, this friend, have I seen fear in their life before? For example, have they been people pleasing? Have they been expressing or displaying FOMO? If you see this, then you know they're living in fear, a delusion reality already. So people who are living in fear, I noticed, just regurgitate. In the past, a couple years ago, I had a Republican family member tell me straight up that even if the news is a lie, they don't think that they could handle finding out the truth because they don't think their system could handle it. That person was at least willing to step into willingness, truth, and reality, even just for a moment. And that's a huge, huge step for somebody. I also noticed that the same person, I'm learning to not force the truth down people's throats because it's not going to land. Some people are not ready yet, but that doesn't mean that we stay silent. But this specific person, over the past couple years, they themselves have stumbled upon, oh, this person that has figured out natural energy, they were just murdered. Wait, this person over here that's figured out how to cure cancer, they've been murdered too. So they've on their own have started to come to the realization, oh, the news, we're just puppets. I can't trust the news. And so that's very healthy to stop and say, why would they want me to have this piece of information? Why would they want me to think this way? Because remember, they're poisoning our foods. They're creating us as slaves in the school system. They want our money. They want us to have cancer. They want us to have diabetes. They want us to be sick. So we need to be a little bit concerned of people who are just taking in the news and thinking it's real, but we don't have to judge them. I know good people that are on this path, and it is a starting point to abuse. Yes, it really is. Like I said, enabling is abuse, but that doesn't mean that they are overtly hoping for people to be harmed. But it's just as important that we talk about this because, like I said, enabling is assisting abuse to continue. So some of the identical sentences that I've heard coming through Republican people, it's, well, Biden brought all these people here. That's not real. I've worked with many people in different jobs for decades. Beautiful immigrants, beautiful people that are very kind souls. So it's not just this heap of people that Biden brought here. It's just regurgitating, just delusion. So it's if they just complied, then they wouldn't get hurt. That's rape and abuse language. Just comply and you won't get hurt. They're wanting us to be normalized to that. That is terrifying. We don't want our kids to think that that's normal. It's not. Another sentence I'm hearing is these ICE agents are just trying to do their job. And I wish that that was the case. I wish that they were people who were hired and went through extensive training to be people that brought peace and tried to intervene with someone that didn't fill out the correct paperwork and then brought them down that path peacefully. Okay, then let's get the paperwork in order, or else you might need to be deported for a while and then try to come back, but very peacefully. This is what we should be after. From an energetic standpoint, guys, when I feel into the energy of the collective of ICE agents, it's one of the most terrifying energies I've ever felt into. I saw one ICE agent clapping after the murder yesterday. There was a microphone leak, and they were cheering on, it's like Call of Duty. And that is collectively the energy that I feel for all of these agents. Maybe not every single one, but collectively. It is people who think of the guy that you watched a documentary and you see people like, oh my God, I went to college with that guy. He ended up being a serial killer. These people are extremely entitled, highly abusive. They do not care about physically torturing anybody. They will go out of their way to do it. These are terrifying human beings. And I'm so sorry if you are just going by eyes and ears and watching the brainwash station, the news, and being like, no, these are men that are just doing their jobs. That is not true. These ICE agents are trained by the Israeli army. As we know, Trump is a slave to Netanyahu. He's given billions of our tax dollars to Israel to help fund a genocide. They have had plans for over 2 years to build a paradise and vacation land on top of all this rubble and dead bodies. It's horrifying. And you will hear the same people that are justifying what's happening here, they will have justified what happened in Palestine. Be very attentive to what people are saying. And it's just also very important to not jump to hate, because that's how we continue to enable hate to expand and ripple. It's not easy, and it's very important for us to feel anger, but not to stay in and become that emotion and stay there for a week long. Then we're not serving ourselves, our families, our relationships, our children. But it is very important that we are feeling that grief of what's happening around us, that rage. This morning I was sobbing, punching a pillow, but then I moved through that emotion. It's very important that we're feeling it, but not staying there. We can't help anyone there. It's also very helpful when I'm talking to people who immediately justify and defend Trump. Then when we have an adult, calm conversation, we really get further. This has happened with more than one person and myself. And we've gotten to the point, and I've asked them, could I ask if you would justify rape or violent attacks to your neighbor? And they're absolutely not. I would stand up and say that's not okay. But so it's interesting that people are not holding the same energy across the board. They're able to clearly say, no, if a friend of mine told me that they were raped or abused, I'd be infuriated. I would never want them to see that person again. But then in the same breath, they are just easily excusing and justifying a lot of these behaviors. And we have ICE agents now that are openly admitting to raping women that are being detained. So I have already felt into that energy. Before I saw that, I knew that women are being raped and children. You have to understand, pedophiles are running the world. So when you feel, also another thing that has come up is people are starting to justify this. Well, all of them are. But then I talked to this friend a little further today and I said, is that something you would want to say to a child? Like, well, everybody's a pedophile. Well, no, we would say none of it's okay. So when we got to the bottom of it, they don't support any of it. But at the beginning of the conversation, they just were so quickly to jump to excusing. So I know that if we have very calm as we can, conversations, a lot of us agree with far more than we are presenting right off the bat. A lot of us are clinging to delusion because of shame, guilt, and fear. That's a state of unwillingness. And once we step into willingness, then we can actually see the truth. And remember, the truth embodies accountability, integrity, willingness, effort. Delusion embodies excuses. Excuses are not real. We have got to stop jumping down each other's throats and try to understand why people feel the way they do. And I'm very, very proud, and I really respect the people that are able to say, you know, I thought that this is what I was supporting, but this has gone too far. I'm all for getting rid of harmful criminals in a nonviolent way as to not frighten all the school children. Like, these kids are terrified. An 11-year-old child committed suicide because the kids were saying, we're going to call ICE on you. And to have people laughing, these are sadistic human beings that are laughing about these kind of things. I have not once seen a person like this and then felt into the energy of them being a healthy person. I have not yet seen one person that I honorably look up to and respect justify this in any way, shape, or form, thank God. So notice what you're looking for, integrity, or are you looking for comfort? Because many people are so terrified they're looking for comfort, and in doing so, they're neglecting the truth, and it is very harmful, and it feels excruciating. But we need to understand that they're in a delusion to stay safe, and if we continue to perpetuate hate at them, then they won. Then the government won. This is not about right and left. This is about principles, integrity, values, morals. So I just encourage and invite you to stop and ask yourself what you're looking for. The truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is, or are you looking for comfort? And if that's the case, that's okay. You just step over there. There are people that want the truth and are willing to feel the discomfort and excruciating pain of what that entails to create change. And stand up. It doesn't matter if it's 3 people in a community speaking up. We need to stop saying, well, this is just how it goes. No. Remember that Greta Thunberg? I don't know how to say her last name. That was one voice, and we all listened. We need to stop enabling and role modeling for our children. Well, what can I do? How can I make any change? Even just right now, doing what I'm doing, any of us can come on here, and you don't have to come on social media. You can talk about it in your families, your groups of friends. When human beings are terrified in our society, notice how our leader addresses it. There's no empathy. This is sadistic abuser behavior. What is it that you are after? The truth, the uncomfortable truth, or are you looking for comfort? We need people like that to step aside respectfully. This is not your fight. So if your intention is integrity, we need you standing up and speaking. If your intention is to just regurgitate, to just fall into default, to stay comfortable, please step aside. Your voice is harmful here. I myself, I'm guilty of in the past being like, I don't know enough about it, so I'm just going to look away. I'm just going to focusing on the things that I do think that I can bring change with. And, that's fine. But at the same time, I was looking away. It was a cop-out. It was a coward move because I personally did not feel smart enough. I would tell myself, I don't know who's telling the truth. But for me, I started asking myself what my values and morals were. And then I started looking to truth seekers, people who are unafraid to find the truth. And I looked at what they were saying and who they were following and reading up on. And I started reading that. And then also people who opposed those views so I can gain understanding from both sides. And so if you are frustrated with people who are making excuses for this, I just invite you to remember a lot of these people are clinging to delusion to stay safe. They're not necessarily bad people at all. And by holding that compassion for them, if you can, it ripples more love, high frequency, and we need it desperately. If you are someone who is not afraid of finding out the truth, no matter how harmful it is, I suggest, if you can stomach it, to listen to some of these tapes I can share right here. Our president is definitely a rapist, pedophile, and murderer, and it is the truth. I'm willing to accept what is uncomfortable. And if you want to have adult conversations, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to people who have different views, but can talk with respect. And for those of you who are heart-led, integrity, accountability-driven, let's hear your voice more. But I do believe that we need to think twice before even protecting our neighbors, which is horrifying to even say. But we might get murdered in the street. So it almost seems like if there is ICE around and we see them around, we need to get inside our homes, and we need to be speaking and using our voices, not putting our bodies between these ICE agents and immigrants, even people that have lived here and are US citizens. It's really scary when we have to resort to, hey, we can no longer protect our neighbors. But I can see that it's not going to benefit us. It might just continue to harm us and more will die. So we need to be speaking, using our voices, and protecting ourselves.